Hey folks, welcome back to Indaba Africa. This is Chris coming to you live from central Pennsylvania. Well, I'm kind of excited about today's guest. It's been quite a busy weekend for those of you following the channel here at Chris Wide Africa. Let's see, we had Hein Marks from the ULA, United Liberty Alliance, the secessionist independence movement on Friday for the Western Cape, or the Cape, I should say. And then on Saturday, Dr. Corne Mulder. But before that, I was up at 3 o'clock in the morning, for those who know. So I started streaming 4 o'clock in the morning for the Bikers Against Farm Murders and Racism, and was involved with that all day. And then we had Dr. Corne Mulder from the Freedom Front Plus on. And today, ladies and gentlemen, my first Springbok interview, a former Springbok number six, well, never former, you always got that number, but Springbok number 636, Andre Snyman, who's currently living in the UK. I know a lot of my viewers have been saying, hey, because I mentioned I was trying to get him. Hey, where's he at? What's he up to? I haven't heard about him lately. Well, here's your chance, ladies and gentlemen, to hear about Andre Snyman. So I'm going to bring Andre in right now. Here we go. Andre, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here, Chris.
Let me do a real quick thing, because sometimes the sound with Zoom kind of lets me down here, Andre. I want to make sure I can hear it on mobile very quickly and see how it sounds, because you don't want technical difficulties. But welcome into the stream. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you very much for having me on the show, Chris. I really appreciate it.
No, it's awesome. You know, when I mentioned that I was going to reach out to you because I'd known you from LinkedIn, my audience was like, seriously? Yeah, get him on the channel, man. Get him on the channel. And then what they don't know is that scheduling is a challenge. You had events going on, as well as you had a holiday taking place. And I wasn't sure if we're going to be able to pull it off for a little bit there, but it worked out, and here you are.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Like I say, I mean, unfortunately, scheduling is sometimes a nightmare, and the logistics around thing, and being a rugby coach and in holiday time and having 2 kids and keeping them busy during the holidays and a lot of other commitments. But I mean, I'm always open for these kind of webinars and Zoom meetings, it's great because you're always doing some great network, and just to share my experience with people. It's brilliant. I absolutely love it. And sometimes just to sit back and listen to what other people's got to say is also great sometimes.
Oh, absolutely. One of the nice side benefits of all this for me has been that, because sounds good on my end. Sorry about this. Just want to make sure. One of the side benefits for me is that with all the interesting guests that I have on my channel, I actually get to expand my horizons a bit too. I mean, I've had a former panel beater from Pretoria on here who decided to become an artist. He's a Tswana speaker, and he decided he wanted to be an artist. And, you know, he did panel beating for 17 years, and he said, heck with this. And he started a couple years ago, and it was a struggle. You know, he had to get going, but then he started making money, and then COVID hit. So, but yeah, so quite a number of interesting guests. Well, Andre, tell us a little bit about yourself, where you grew up in South Africa.
Well, so first of all, I mean, I grew up in a little small town called Danhausen. It's in the northern Natal region, which is about 3.5 hours inland from Durban, which is on the east coast. So it's a very, very small little town. That's where I grew up. My dad or my family used to be farmers in the community. So went to Dundee High School, matriculated or graduated in 1992. And then I decided to go to Pretoria to go and study engineering. Went there to study engineering, finished the engineering, and then while I was studying, obviously started playing for the Blue Bulls, played in the local league, so to speak, and then the selectors for me picked me up or earmarked me, went into the Blue Bull. In those days, it was called the Old Northern Transvaal, training camps and everything. And then in 1994, I started playing for the Blue Bulls. Had a really good run with them until end of 99. And then I decided it's time to go back home, which is Natal. So I managed to get a contract with the Sharks, Natal Sharks. Went to Durban. I played for them until the end of 2003. And then that's when I decided to move to the UK to a club called Leeds Tykes, which is in the north of England in Yorkshire, West Yorkshire. Played for them from the end of 2003 until May of 2007. And that's when I retired. So I just retired in 2007. And then obviously within that, I started playing for the Springboks in 1996. And then my last game for the Springboks was also in 2006, sorry. So I had a 10-year career playing for the Springboks, and then a 15-year career playing club rugby, semi-professional, professional, until I retired.
Well, that's quite a roundup of the career there. I was going to ask that over a spread of time, but we can talk about each of the things. But one of my viewers, who's also a moderator here, grew up in Katanga, in the Congo, and then her family was able to get out the last minute during the nonsense taking place there. They knew Moise Tshombe, who was the breakaway president of the Katangan secessionist movement, but she's lived all over Southern Africa, and she mentions that she used to live in Danhauser. Look at that.
Yeah.
Small world.
I know. So Danhauser, it used to be well, actually not Danhauser. There was a little town which is almost maybe the same size, maybe smaller. It was called Durnacol, which was a mining community. There was a big coal mine. That whole area is known for its coal mining and farming. So it was a mining town called Durnacol. So a lot of the kids went to Danhauser school. But they're literally right next to each other. But yeah, it's not a lot of people know where it is. So when people ask me where I'm from, I normally say to them I'm from Durban, because if I had to try and explain to them where's Danhauser, because if you drive past it and you blink, you've missed it. So it's tiny.
No, I got you. I went to high school in a small rural area of Appalachia in Ohio. It's called Junction City. And if I say Junction City, people I just say Ohio.
Yeah, exactly. It's just easier. It's just easier that way.
So Paulie Fire Seven Fire, who's a firefighter in South Africa, that hence the name Paulie Seven Fire. He says Andre was a beast when he played. Indeed, I'd have to echo that. Now listen, Andre. Okay, look. Out of respect, I've worn an older Springbok jersey of mine. One that's got sass.
As long as it's green and gold, then you're on the right side.
Yeah, I didn't want my guests to abandon the interview just at the start of it, because people know that I'm a Western Province Stormers fan, but I do have Bulls jersey. But I wore the Bulls jersey yesterday because Dr. Mulder was on my channel and he's from the High Veld. But this is painful for me. I'm going to do this now. This is nothing but respect for you, Andre. Okay, so here you go. I've got this. There you go.
All right. There you go. Your blood is blue. That's good.
Ons bloed is blue. Anyway, put that back on the shelf real quick. There we go. Yeah, so how did you get started in rugby? I mean, did you get an early start, or were you a late bloomer with rugby?
I mean, I've always been a sportsman. I was very fortunate to come from a very sporty family. My dad he went to Newcastle High School, and he was actually a soccer player or a football player. Mm-hmm. He was a pretty good athlete as well. My mom was a very good track and field athlete. She played a little bit of hockey and netball in those days. Then my sister, she represented South Africa in netball. So she got her colors in netball. My middle brother, he represented his country or South Africa in horse riding. It's a sport called Gymkhana. So he's got his colors in that. And then myself obviously in rugby, as well as I represented my country or county, which is Natal, at the South African Championships in track and field. So I'm come from a sporty family, so sport was always a big thing in our family. We've always been competitive. Even in my current family, we always joke with each other. The last one in the car is a pumpkin, or the last one, somewhere is something. There's always this competition in the family. So yeah, I mean, it's always been there. But I mean, in the early stages of my life, I've never thought about becoming a professional rugby player, because there was no such thing as a professional rugby player. Yeah. Rugby was seen as just a Saturday afternoon sport, eating oranges and biltong and have a beer. So as a kid, there was no inspiration or aspiration to become a professional rugby player, because there was no such thing. All you would just wanted to do is just go out there, play the game with your friends, whether it's at school level or whatever, and have fun. And then, so when I went to college or university, started playing there, same thing. There was no talk about professionalism or being paid to play rugby. My dad sent me to college to go and study, and then obviously finish studies and then come back to the farm and be part of the whole family farming community. So it's never crossed my mind. And then all of a sudden I played at the university and I got selected to play for Transvaal. And I was like, hold on a second. all of a sudden I'm getting a small little brown envelope every Friday afternoon after training. Oh yeah, sorry, I'm not allowed to say. To wish me well, and I've been selected. That there was a letter in the brown envelope saying, "Congratulations, you've made the team." And that's when I realized, hang on a second, maybe I'm okay. I'm good enough to play at a higher level. But before that, I've always looked at guys like Nas Botha, Dani Gerber, Karel Du Plessis. I've watched those guys play, and I was like, wow, these guys are awesome, and you base yourself around their game plan and everything and how they play. And I got to a point with the Northern Transvaal at the time where I was like, okay, hang on. I had to make a choice between, what am I going to do? Am I going to go back to the farm? Am I going to keep on playing? And my mom just said to me, you know what, Andre, this is an opportunity. Why don't you go for it? You've got nothing to lose. You can't play rugby until you're 50 years old, but you can work and study until you're 50 years old. So I took my mom's advice, and I decided, I'm going to put everything into rugby and train hard and be committed and have the right attitude. And then all of a sudden the doors just started opening up for me. I've been selected for the Bulls, and then all of a sudden for the South African under 21 team. And then obviously the whole domino effect happened. So to answer your question, it was not my priority to play high profile rugby. It was, for me, rugby was just a means of having fun with my friends and throwing the ball around, and then I was fortunate to have a little bit of talent, speed, and power, and I used it to my benefit. And then obviously somebody saw that, and they put me in an environment where I can improve that, and then became the player that I was.
No, it's interesting you mentioned that, Andre, because a lot of people are not familiar with the sport of rugby, or even people who've grown into it, kids, youth these days, they don't realize that it was an amateur sport throughout its history. Yeah. It's a long, storied history, of course, but it's only become a professional sport 25 years ago. The famous meeting in Paris, in fact, was this month, 25 years ago, that professional rugby was born, so to speak.
Yeah, no, definitely. Like I say, I mean, it was, and I was part of that transition. In 1994, you played for the Northern Transvaal, and you only get a pat on your back. You might get a little stipend just to pay for your fuel. And then all of a sudden we had the 1995 World Cup, and then in 1996, all of a sudden, you sign on a piece of paper on a dotted line, and you're getting paid to play the game that you love. And everything just changed. It was that first 2-3 years was really a testing time, because nobody knew what does it mean to be a professional player. Just because now all of a sudden you get money every month, yes, that's great, but what does it mean? Does it mean you have to run faster? Does it mean you have to jump higher? What does it mean? Where is it going to go? I mean, what do you do? What does it? But the big thing that was obviously training changed, because all of a sudden it went from maybe 2 trainings a week to everyday training, because now you can't use the excuse of, oh, sorry, coach, I have to go and work, because rugby was your work. But still nobody knew what does it mean to become a professional rugby player. And I saw a lot of, even looking back at my time and my career and the people around me at the time, the way we had to adapt and change, and I look at the way the kids are doing it now. You've got academies, and you're looking at kids at 19 years old playing in the professional international scene. It's just unbelievable. It's just amazing how the game has changed from 25 years ago. It's unbelievable.
No, it's absolutely amazing. For instance, for me, I was introduced to rugby as a freshman at university in 1982. One of the upperclassmen said, "Hey, you coming to the game tonight on a Friday afternoon?" I'm like, game's tomorrow. He goes, "No, not football, American football. No, not football. Rugby." I'm like, "I've heard of rugby, but I'm from Appalachia, man. We're just happy to have paved roads and electricity, So, which is a joke, but it was true. I didn't have electricity for a while there, but anyway. So I went down to the game. There were no stands. We're just standing in touch on the side. They were watching it, and I'm like, okay, This was the time when Australian rules came out on ESPN, so we all knew what Australian rules football was. Okay, it's not Australian rules. It's not soccer, thank God. It's not football. Okay, this is fun, but I have no idea what's going on here. And I fell in love with the game at that point. Of course, we didn't have a national team in the U.S., even though we were still the reigning Olympic champions from 1920 to
Correct. That's true.
But we didn't have a national team at that time. USA Rugby hadn't been set up. And so I, as a history student, interested in history, started looking around and said, well, who am I going to follow? Because I want to follow it. And, of course, there was no cable networks and no satellite, none of this stuff. It was still amateur. And I looked and I saw that the Springboks, and I had an interest in South Africa. Springboks had a storied history, and I said, you know what? I'm a Springbok fan. And I became a Springbok fan in 1984. And the first question I got was, what, are you a racist? I'm like, what? What?
Oh, yeah, no, that's unfortunately, I mean, South Africans are doomed, you know. I mean, we linked with that whole, the big R, unfortunately. You know, I think it's something that we're going to take with us to our graves one day. Everybody will put us under that racist umbrella, thinking that, you know, we if you're from South Africa, you're automatically racist, just because of what happened in the past. But I mean, I think they need to catch a wake up. Time has moved on. You know, the apartheid era is not there anymore. People that lived in that time and that era, I think most of them is probably 6 foot under the ground pushing up daisies right now. So we need to try and change people's view on South Africans. But anyway, it's funny. I mean, not so long ago, you know, in 2011, when I arrived in America, and if I say to people I'm from South Africa, they'll look at me and they're like, why are you white? And you know, so do you live in those little hut houses and all that stuff? And I'm like,
do you speak South African?
you know, or you'll say you're from South Africa, and they look at you and they go like, "Is that a country in Africa?" You know, it's just it's quite interesting people's reaction when you say to them you're from South Africa. So
people are complaining there are too many Shark fans in the chat room right now. Listen, here's the thing, Andre. All of my streams, I always wear a rugby jersey. I got about 80 rugby jerseys. And I did a video recently when the Sia Khaleesi's comments came out about his experiences, and I'm a fan of Sia Khaleesi, so I was kind of angry and upset about that. People were talking about cutting up their Springbok jerseys, so I did a video. It was kind of off the cuff. I hung up a little laundry thing here, and I lined up all of my Springboks jerseys. And I started saying, listen, Sia, you're mistaken. You don't really understand what you're talking about with this group. And I said, people are talking about cutting up their jerseys. I kept moving from side to side. And I said, I'm not cutting up my Springbok jerseys. Why would I do that? So anyway, that's actually been my best performing video to date with about 70,000 views. And I didn't even study for it. Most of my videos I research them because, you know, I used to be an analyst.
Prepare.
Yeah, and I prepare. This one was just like, okay, look, guys, I'm not cutting up my jerseys, and people want to watch that sort of thing. So,
good.
So I always wear a jersey on here, and I try to do it usually either it represents where someone's from if they're in South Africa, or I just wear one that, because I have Canadian, I have U.S., I have Wales, I have Ireland, I have all kinds of jerseys. Japan. Anyway, so I try to wear one every time. It's kind of my thing. So people are always talking about rugby in the stream, which is good. One of my goals here is to get people talking about rugby wherever it's at in the world.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I'm a firm believer. The sport rugby is what's the right wording? It's a bridge. It's a bridge between cultures and countries, because you can play rugby in any. I mean, if you go to any country in the world, you'll probably find a team or a club that plays rugby. But you can't go to any country and they won't play basketball, for example. They won't play baseball or American football or stuff like that. So, but if you go to India, for example, India is known for cricket, but they have a rugby team. There's a really good rugby community there at the moment. You know, you'd never think that, but that's why I say, and the beauty about rugby is it's a brotherhood or a sisterhood, so to speak. You know, if you go to Australia, New Zealand, anywhere in the world, and you go to their local rugby club, and you just walk in there, you know, and you say, hey, I'm a South African rugby player, or I'm from South Africa, I play rugby, or from American, I play rugby. It's almost like they accept you and they start talking to you about rugby because everybody knows exactly, you know, what the sport is all about and everything. And it's almost like they'll help you. And it's just an amazing sport to build bridges between countries. I love it. I love rugby.
No, it's absolutely amazing. And that's one of the reasons why I've loved game too. You know, when I went to Uganda, I met a South African who ran the Marriott or the Hilton, whichever the hotel is there. I forget. I think it was the Hilton. And it was my first week there. And he's like, hey, why don't you come to the championships tomorrow? I'm like, okay. So he got me a seat, and I went there. And after it was over, I met a bunch of the players who won the championship side, but they played for the Cranes, which is the national team. And they started talking to me, and we're talking about rugby, and they're like, hey, why don't you come be one of our coaches? And I'm like, you want me to coach the Ugandan national side? I'm like, okay. But seriously, it's a game that really draws people in. When I was in Japan, I saw all these guys outside one of the games. I went to a game, and they're wearing these T-shirts, and they all had Quagga Smith's picture on it. So I couldn't help it. I walked over and started talking to them. I said, hey, are you guys fanboys? What's going on? And they said, no, Quagga's on our team. I'm like, huh? Because he plays in Japan. They were the players from the team there, and a lot of them were South Africans, so it was pretty cool. But you're right.
That's awesome. It's
just a game that brings people together, no matter where you go. When I went to New Zealand for the 2011 World Cup, I went to all over the country, but I was in Wellington, and Auckland has a lot of white Afrikaans-speaking South Africans who live there. Wellington for some reason has a lot of colored South Africans who speak Afrikaans. Yeah. And I was staying in the Amora Hotel. I walked downstairs wearing my Springbok jersey, even though they weren't in town. And someone greeted me in Afrikaans, and I said, hello, how you doing?
Yeah.
And he started talking to me, and I walked. I said, hey, ek praat nie Afrikaans nie. And he's like, yes, you do. You just spoke it.
Well, that's about it.
No, I understand it as a problem. I just can't speak it. The G's kill me. But anyway, so they were marveled because I'm an American. I was in the military station in Germany. So I live in Germany. I'm an American. I've come to New Zealand, and I'm a Springbok fan. And they just couldn't get their head around that. It was really fascinating.
No, it's almost like a party trick. I mean, obviously, me being born in South Africa, and then obviously having an American passport as well. So sometimes when people ask me, so Andre, what nationality are you? So I'll say to no, I'm African American. So it's like a party trick, and they're like, oh, no, you're not. I'm like, yes, I was born in Africa, but I'm an American passport, so I'm African American. It's like a bit of a party trick sometimes.
Yeah, no, John Kerry's wife said that because she's Portuguese from Mozambique. I think she grew up in Mozambique. And she said, I'm African-American. And people looked at her like, huh? What are you talking about?
Yeah. it's just interesting to sometimes see people's reactions. That's all. So it's fun.
I agree with you entirely. So there's a question here from Brett Sessoms, who's an American from Mississippi, who knows a lot about Africa. He follows the channel. He said, so does Andre have any other sports interests besides rugby? Thoughts on cricket, soccer, and baseball?
Yeah, so I'm quite a fanatic golfer.
Okay.
I really love my golf. So obviously, being a professional rugby player, we had a lot of time on our hands. So we would train in the morning and then go play golf in the midday, or go to the driving range and then train in the afternoons. And weekends we'll play golf after a game. So yeah, I'm quite a fanatic golfer. And then other hobbies is fishing. I quite enjoy bass fishing, as well as archery.
Cool.
So I enjoy my compound bow. I got my son into that as well. So my son, he's into archery and fishing and golfing, and basically a chip of the old block. So I'm trying to, both my kids, I'm trying to introduce them to as many sports as I can. They don't have to be the best in it, as long as they're competitive, as long as they can compete and they just have fun. So I would say my other sports, obviously as a younger kid, I did track and field. I really enjoyed my track and field. But now that I'm during my rugby career and after rugby, I've decided to do things that I still can do no matter what my age, which is golf, archery, and those things. So those are the sports that I enjoy. I've never been a cricket player, never played cricket in my life. I've never played a match. But being a sportsman, hand-eye coordination, put a bat in my hand, I'd probably be able to hit a ball. I'll probably bowl out the second ball, or baseball. I'll be able to hit a ball. I won't be good, but I can try. So, but yeah, those are pretty much my interests.
No, you're pretty much just a sportsman across the board. I'm like you. I've done pretty much all that except for archery. I mean, I've fired bows before, but I never did it competitively. Yeah. So that's the golf is a great one too. When you play a high contact sport, golf is a good thing to kind of unwind from because you're not running into anybody.
Yeah, and exactly, and you can't get too frustrated with it, because as soon as you start getting frustrated, or you overcompensate, then you're just losing it. Then the ball is going to go all the way. So you really have to focus. channel your energy and do something with finesse. It's a finesse game. It's not a game about power and strength. As soon as you bring power and strength and grip and rip into the game, it's not going to work. So it's a bit of a finesse game. You got to it's all about touch and feel, which is good.
Well, I like that calm measure. When I play, my 5-iron winds up in a water trap after.
I have a friend. He says to me, "I don't know why I've got a whole golf set. I only need 3 clubs: a 7-iron, a sandwich, and a putter."
That's it. Exactly right.
That's it. That's
exactly
all he
right.
needs.
So Brett Sessom's asked another question, Andre, and it's a good one. I think I can answer part of it. So let me see.
Yeah.
He asked, "How many languages do you speak?" Well, of course, I'm going to guess Afrikaans and English. Do you know any Zulu?
Yes, so I speak Afrikaans, Zulu, and English, and then I used to be able to speak German and Polish.
Oh, Polish.
Yeah, so the German is because when you were at school, German was one of the subjects that we had to take, but obviously after school, I never carried on talking, so I wouldn't say I'm a fluent in German. Polish, it's because I was married. My ex-wife, my first wife was Polish, so I couldn't speak it, but I could understand it. So I could do your normal, hello, and can you please pass me this, and just get around, I would say. Zulu, I could speak fluently, absolutely fluently, because I grew up on a farm. I could actually speak Zulu before I could speak Afrikaans, because mom and dad was working on the farm. So the nanny would look after me as a baby. So she would, up until the age of about 2, 3, 4 years old, the nanny on the farm would look after me and interact with me and feed me and all that stuff. So all I heard the whole time was the Zulu language. So I could speak that. I picked it up very quickly. But unfortunately, as you get older, you lose touch. But I can fluently understand it. I can 100% understand it. It's just sometimes the words, the grammar, the words. In my head, I know exactly what I want to say, but for some reason, the words just don't want to come out. But yeah, I mean, those, I would probably say 3 languages: English, Afrikaans, and Zulu.
Yeah, it's interesting you said
And
that.
then obviously gibberish as well. It's at about 3 o'clock in the morning after a few drinks, so I can speak that language as well.
Well, I guess you're not drinking Castle Lager because there's not much in
Nah.
Yeah, I like to give South Africans a hard time because they don't have any decent beer. Ooh, sorry. And people are like, wait a second, you come from America. No, we have a craft brew industry that sprung up 30 years ago, and it's saved our beer industry. Otherwise, you have that watered down urine that you get from the major makers. But anyway, I'm kind of a beer snob. German Reinheitsgebot, it has to be by that, or I don't drink it. But you do raise a point there, Andre, that unintentionally, that something I'd like to mention is that, I meet so many South Africans, especially black South Africans, who say that, whites have to learn an African language. And almost every Afrikaans-speaking South African I've ever met knows an African language beyond Afrikaans because they grow up in similar circumstances where they've got a nanny at the time, and the first language they usually learn is Tswana or Siswati or Venda or Xhosa, whatever it is.
Correct.
So they all speak it. So, I mean, it's just always bothered me that people just making assumptions based on a person, on their appearance, and just assume they don't know another language.
Yeah. No, I mean, like I said, at school, in primary school, up until the age of 13, we had Zulu as one of our subjects at school. So you had to, because in South Africa, I think the curriculum has changed, but you had to do Afrikaans and English, and then you had to choose another language. So, if your first language was Afrikaans, you had to do English as a second language, and then you could choose another language, either Zulu or German and stuff like that. So we had to, at school level, we had to learn the basics of a third language, so to speak. And because we had also a lot of Germans in the Dundee community, in and around Dundee, that's why they offered German as a subject at the school. I mean, it's one of those things, growing up in a country where there's 11 official languages. I think it's going to happen where, different cultures will pick up different languages because you hear that the whole time. You might not be fluent in it, but you'll be able to say, hello, goodbye, help me with this, or how much is this? Or so you'll get the necessary, phrases, words, so to speak, that from the other languages. I mean, you might not have a complete debate session on it, but you'll be able to get by.
It's interesting you mentioned that. I was going to bring it up, but you just brought it kind of back up again. You talked about Dundee. I do research on ethnic Germans. It's one of the things I write on all over the world, whether it's in Transylvania, it's the Amish in the States, it's Germans in Italy and South Tyrol, German speakers. South Africa, there's a lot of ethnic Germans, and they actually, DNA-wise, Germans comprise the largest percentage of the Afrikaans community, the white Afrikaans community. People think it's Dutch. They're second. It's actually German because so many Germans came in, and Germans have this habit of assimilating very quickly. And when I was in KZN, I was in Dundee and Elandskraal and all over.
Did you go?
Go ahead.
Did you go to Blood River?
Of course, I've been to Blood River. I've been to Isaan Luana. I've been to Rourke's Drift. I've never been to Springbok. I've driven by it, but never been up to it.
Yeah.
One day I'll get there. But what I was getting at in that is that I went to a hotel there in Dundee, and the woman I met was a German speaker because she had German things on the wall. She owned the hotel. This was like 20 years ago. She was in her late 60s or 70s, something like that. And it turns out that her family was from Angola. They were ethnic Germans who lived in Angola. Then after the First World War, they were relocated to Namibia. She was born in Namibia. She moved to South Africa with her family later on. And she had a hotel in Dundee, so that's where I stayed.
Yeah.
And then I went to Elandskraal, and I met a German Lutheran pastor who was a fourth generation South African, first language German, second language English, third language Afrikaans, fourth language Zulu. Spoke all of them fluently.
Yeah.
It's just amazing. It's amazing how many Germans are there. And we were speaking between English and Afrikaans and German because I'm fluent in German. And we're mixing this up. And in the conversation, I thought he told me he'd never been to Germany. Okay, got that. And then he was showing me the watercolors on his wall in his office. And there's a painting of a church where he worked in Heilbronn, one where he worked in Heidelberg, and one where he worked. And I'm like, listen, I'm sorry, maybe I misunderstood because my Afrikaans is not that good. Or maybe I thought you never been to Germany. He goes, I've never been to Germany. I said, but you said Heilbronn. And he goes, here in KwaZulu-Natal. I'm like, oh, that's right. Yeah, lots of Germans in KZN.
Yeah, no, there's especially in the northern parts of the province. There's definitely in that Dundee, Ladysmith area. There's a lot of Germans there.
Absolutely. So if I could digress for a second there, your family had a farm. What sort of farm was it? I mean, because when I think of KwaZulu-Natal, I think of sugarcane fields down along the coast.
Yeah, no, the sugarcane farms were further or closer to the ocean. We were, like I say, we were like a 3-hour drive inland. Obviously, you know where Dundee is. Yep. So we were corn farmers.
Oh, so maize, okay.
Yeah, maize. We were corn farmers, maize, and then cattle and sheep. So Dad had like a little system to feed the cattle. We had to provide our own food. And then once you've harvested the food, all the rests are lying on the ground. It's a perfect feed. So we push the cows into the land to eat the rests. And then once the rests are done, we push them onto the grasslands, and then we cultivate the land again, and then we plant the mealies again. So it's like a vicious circle between the mealies, the cows, and the sheep. So that's it. So that's what I mean. So my dad was pretty a decent farmer. He was quite big. He had a couple of managers working for him, and then my brother also worked for my father while I was studying. But yeah, so unfortunately, Dad fell ill, and then he obviously passed away. And then once Dad passed away, the farming just got too big, so we decided to scale it down. So we sold a lot of the farms, lock, stock, barrel, everything. We got rid of everything, and so Mom decided to retire. My brother took his inheritance, and he's still in Dundee. My brother is still in Dundee, and he's got his own little farm set up there now. And then my mom, she lives in Dundee as well, as a nice retired old lady.
Your brother, is that Tian?
No, Nas. I've only got one brother. His name is actually Ignatius. Okay. But we all know him as Nas.
Okay, that makes sense. No, somebody said something.
I just want to clarify. Hopefully, a lot of South Africans listen.
Yeah.
I've only got one brother.
Yeah.
And his name is Nas, because everybody with the surname Snyman is not my family member. Because a lot of people are asking me, is this your brother? Is this and this your cousin? And I'm like, no, I've only got two cousins, and their name is Rulof and Herman. So those are my cousins. My brother is Nas, so I just want to clear that up.
Well, the reason I asked that question is because one of my viewers asked the question, and they asked about your brother Tian. I'm like, I don't know that he has a brother named Tian. That was news to me. But I mean, I don't always have all the answers, so I thought maybe I missed something here. But yeah,
no. But a lot of people ask me. There was even today on Facebook, a gentleman asked me. He was at school with a guy down in Cape Town, and at the Strand. His name is Yaku Snyman. Is he? And this person, Yaku Snyman, told everybody that he's my cousin. No, he's not my cousin. And everybody asked me if Tian Snyman is my brother. RG Snyman is my brother. Philip Snyman is my brother. Yes, there's a lot of Snymans in the rugby world, but none of them are. I guess we're very, very, very far related, I assume. But as my knowledge, no. I've only got one brother and two cousins.
Yeah, that's why I asked that question. So, folks, you're listening to Chris White Africa on the Indaba Africa channel on a special feature Sunday. My guest is Springbok number 636, Andre Snyman, right here down in the bottom corner of the screen. Welcome to anyone tuning in now. The audience is starting to gain a bit of strength here as we go on. But I did want to ask you a little bit, because taking a look at the list of Springboks and remembering back to those days, you've played with a few names that people know. I mean, this oak called Rassie Erasmus, didn't you play with him?
Yeah, Rassie and I, we were teammates. We come a long way back with the Springbok playing days. I've been fortunate to play underneath 7 Springbok coaches. I don't know if it's fortunate or bad luck, but it just shows that there was a lot of change. Once again, that whole transition between semi-pro to pro and the coaches and everything. It just shows that, unfortunately, there was a lot of turnover in coaches. So I used to play 7 Springbok coaches coached me during my Springbok career. I used to play with guys like the belated old Joost van der Westhuizen, which was probably my best mate. We used to be roommates for more than 7 years on tour. There was a standard joke to say that him and we actually slept in the same room more than we slept with our own wives and girlfriends. So we shared. Yeah, we've got lot of stories to share. But yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed playing with Joost. We had guys like Ruben Kruger, unfortunately also passed away. Os Durant, Ollie Leroux, Os Durant, Ollie Leroux. The big old tall Mark Andrews, Kobus Visser, funny enough, Joel Stransky, James Small, Chester Williams, Andre Joubert. I mean, the list just goes on and on and on of legends of the game. So yeah, I was very fortunate to play with them and against them. And then, even guys like the current or more younger guys, Jean de Villiers, John Smith, those guys, I played with them as well. So, but that was towards the end of my career. So it was really a good career. It was a really long, fulfilling career. I've seen a lot, went to a lot of places. But yeah, there were some really, really good players in our era that we played. Franco Pina was also one of them that I played with and against. Gary Teichmann. So yeah, there's some good names there.
No, it's funny to hear you say though, Andre, to say the younger guys like John Smith. I mean that's now like 2 generations removed of Springboks, and because for me a cohort is like 5 years. I call that a rugby generation. That's just informally I'd say that's it, because usually that's when you have a group of people together who are together a long time. It's 5 years at best. So that's a couple generations removed already. You say the young guys. That's kind of funny.
I know, because I mean, like I say, I mean I'm 46 right now, and I'm not sure how old John is. But I mean, I remember I was coming to the end of my career, and then John and Jean and those guys, they just started their career. So there was a good, more than 8-9 years age difference between us, So, and we as older senior players, we always talked about the young guns, the young guns are coming through, so that's why in our eyes, unfortunately, they'll always be the younger generation or the younger players, because we were the old hags, the old war horses in the corner of the room.
No, I got you. But I mean, the list of players that are iconic that you play with, Percy Montgomery, you play with, didn't you?
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yanni De Beer. I mean, that just the list goes on. It's fantastic. It must have been an exciting time. Oh yeah, that's right. You also played, I believe, with Province Stormers coach Robbie Fleck. Is that true?
Correct. Yeah, Robbie Fleck as well. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. A lot of stuff. Now,
So,
did you ever play with Brian Habana on a pitch?
yes, Brian Abana as well. Yeah, towards, like I said, towards the end of my career, 2006. Brian and Jean de Villiers and John Smith, those guys, and then obviously Bobby Skinstad. Everybody remember Bobby Skinstad? Yeah, he was also part of that era as well.
Quite fascinating stuff. It was an exciting time, I think, that transition, and you moved those. You guys really moved the Springboks to it. Now something we got to fix here, though. Listen, I don't know if you can help the Springboks out. Rossi has moved up to management, but no, seriously, this every 12-year nonsense has to stop. I can't wait 12 years for another cup. I mean, 95, 2007, 2019. I don't want to wait till 12 years next time.
No, definitely, I agree with you on that one. I mean, it was a really, really great World Cup, especially being in England when that happened. Just rubbing dirt in the English face. So it was really fantastic. But yeah, I mean, I think the Springboks are on the right track at the moment. They've got some super players in there at the moment. I really hope they can all stay fit and healthy for the next 3-4 years. Going into the next World Cup. I just wish them luck, and I wish the coaching staff all the best, and I hope they do the right thing and let the players express themselves. And I think the players know what's on the line and what they play for. And I think they, if they just keep the core. If you look at that team, it was a very young team. They can definitely stay together for another 4 years. I think more than 80% of that team is old enough to play another World Cup. So hopefully they can do that again, or give it a good run and not wait for 12 years.
No, absolutely. I think that is the case. And they had a few really talented younger kids coming up behind. They didn't even make that team. And in fact, I argued, while I was happy with the team selection, I argued there were actually a few Springboks that I thought might have been better selections in certain positions. But as a team, Rossi hit it spot on. This was the team he needed to make this happen. And, of course, they made history being the first team to ever lose a pool stage and then win the whole thing. Yeah.
I mean, it's like you just said it, sometimes as a coach, you don't always want to pick the best player with the best talent. You want to pick the best, the player that's good, the best for the team. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you got to put the player with a better skill on the bench, and pick the player with lesser skill. But he just brings that X factor potentially to the team, and he's like maybe the glue of the team. He might not be as skillful, but you need him in your team to keep the team together. And I feel like you said, I think Rossi, I think his combination was pretty spot on.
Yeah, and it's the thing I love about rugby, Andre, is that you don't have to be the best player on the pitch. You just have to be able to fill a role that helps the team win, and I think that's what you're kind of talking about there.
Yeah. No, definitely, because I feel now that I'm a coach, sometimes you look at the player, and you as a coach can see this player or this kid has got so much talent, but the problem that's happening at the moment is they know it, so they become like full of themselves, and that could potentially damage the team if they've got this attitude running on the pitch, knowing that they're the best player, knowing that they are the number one player, and it causes more damage than anything else, because they would not, if there's a situation to whether they should draw and pass or whether they're going to score, they're probably going to throw the dummy and go themselves because they want the accolades, where a lesser player would probably go, you know what, I'm going to put the ball into the player's hands, which is in a better position, and not go for that accolades, signing autographs and all that stuff. It's rather put someone else in a better position. So yes, I mean, it's a tough one as a coach to get that combination right between playing your skillful player and your lesser skillful player. I mean, if you can get a skillful player with the right attitude, that's a winning combination.
And it also becomes a challenge for a coach too. Like, let me shift to sevens for just a second. But look at the USA. We've got Carlin Isles and Perry Baker. Oh my God, that's two of the unbelievable best players on the planet. And Mike Friday has a tough choice. It's a really difficult situation for him, because if we're objective, when both of them are on the pitch, the team doesn't play as well. Not because either one of them fail, but because they're similar. and it just
Yeah.
doesn't gel. But when he platoons them and puts Perry out to start or Carlin out to start, he gets far better results, and they play as a team better. It's just the way it works out.
No, absolutely. I mean, it's like you said, it's to find that balance. It's to find that balance in a team. You can't have a team with just speed or a team with just bulk, or a team that with just defending, because, so you got to find that balance between when are you going to use the speed, when are you going to use the strength, when are you going to use the one-out runners, just punch it up through the middle. You got to, as a coach, you got to know your horses. You got to know the players you're working with. What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? And then you got to select, and then obviously know your opposition. You got to know your opposition as well, who you're playing against. Are you going to play speed against this team? Are you going to play physically against this opponent? So, and that's why, and you're absolutely right. By putting two speedsters on a team at the same time, I don't think that's the right combination. You're probably only going to do that if you're playing against a really big, strong team to outrun them. But the problem then is normally your speedsters are not your best defenders. So if you play against a big team that's just going to carry the ball all against you, yes, you're going to beat them with speed, but they're going to run through you and score tries. So you got to have that balance between having big boys on your team to make the tackles and then also enough speed to run around them. So you got to be very careful how you pick your teams.
Absolutely, I'm with you. So one of my moderators just reminding people, listen, if you want to ask questions, you got to put the @Chris in front of it so it gets to my attention. But a lot of questions are coming in. We're not going to get to all these questions. So
no worries.
Yeah. Now you did play with Ash Willemse as well when you played, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one of my viewers asked a question, and you don't have to answer this, Andre. I'm not going to put you on the spot, but he's asking your thoughts on the Ash Willemse controversy. Let me just say this before, whether you want to address it or not, is that I'm a fan of Ash. I liked him as a player. I found his commentary for rugby interesting. I didn't always agree with it, but I found it interesting, and I like his voice. I like his attitude, and I was really crushed by the whole situation that happened there with Nas, and it just really was really disappointing. I don't know if you want to comment it. You're welcome to. But...
I don't want to go into too much depth on it. I'm not a politician.
Good move. Good move.
And I hate politics and sport. Politics and sport always kill the game. All I can say is he was a good player.
Yep.
He was one of the lesser fortunate players coming through the ranks, and he made it work for himself. He benefited from it. But at the end of the day, I think towards the end, he made his bed and he's got to sleep in it. So that's all I can say on that one. It's just sometimes in life, you've got to have the courage of your conviction. And I think that's what happened. And it's just sad that there's a lot of animosity and hostility in the country between the blacks and the whites. It's the big R, the big racism thing about South Africa, and it's just sad. It's really sad that sometimes people can't just let it go and just say, you know what, all our blood is red. Everybody's blood is red. We all breathe the same air. But yeah, Ashwin, unfortunately, good player. All I can say is, he made his bed and he's got to sleep in it and he's got to take responsibility for his actions.
Yeah, no, the thing for me that was disappointing is that now I never hear about the guy anymore. He's just kind of fallen off the earth, and that's unfortunate. So, yeah, we'll leave it there. And thanks for answering that. You didn't have to feel obliged to. So now Brett's asked another question here. It's a really good. There's a lot of them here, but I pulled these out as we were chatting. Brett asked a question about Namibia. Now, I'm a Velvich's fan. I'm a huge Namibia fan. Jacques Borger, one of my all-time favorite rugby players. I watched him at the 2015 World Cup in England when he was injured against Georgia, and Namibia was tantalizingly close, 17-16. And I was sitting at the end of the pitch in the seats at the end, and I'm like, I got a terrible seat because it was the only seat I could get. Turns out almost the entire game was played right in front of me there, both halves.
Oh, brilliant.
It was brilliant. and I was there, and he got injured, and they almost beat. That would have been their first win. So he's asking about Namibia improving their game. What I tell people about Namibia and the other Tier 2, Tier 3 teams, including USA Rugby, which is getting up there, but you're never going to improve if you don't play against the big boys. If the only time Namibia ever plays against the Springboks or the Wallabies or England or Wales is in a Rugby World Cup, they'll never get there.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, unfortunately, I think Namibia is in a between a rock and a hard place. They want to improve. I think they've got really quality players, but there's a couple of factors what we got to consider. First of all, the location.
Yeah.
You've got players scattered all over the country, and it's not logistically, it's a nightmare to get your players to trainings. I mean, some of those boys, I think they drive like 3 hours to training there and back. It's just unfortunately the demographics of the country. So I think if that could potentially change, and you can have, more players closer to the city that can play, that will be beneficial for the team. I think that's the one thing. The second thing is it's funding. It's the money to be able to travel with this team to go play the bigger unions or the bigger teams. I'm not sure how strong the union is financially to be able to say, right, let's go and play against South Africa as a warm-up game, or let's go play against England or Ireland or Italy. It's a tough ask for Namibia, which is a really small state. I mean, it's the same question can be asked of Georgia, Russia. I mean, it's just unfortunate. I think the tier 2 nations, they do struggle to find the game time financially, logistically, to be able to play against the tier 1 nations. I mean, as it is, the tier 1 nations has a lot of games on their plate anyway, because they play so many games against and competitions. But I think it's baby steps. It's just baby steps. But I mean, I think the first initial answer that comes to my head about Namibia is the logistics of the actual country. Because I'm very good friends with one of the team members that went to the recent World Cup, Vian Conradi. I mean, he's a superb player. He played here in England. He's back in Namibia at the moment. He's just managed to sign a deal with a team in Texas. So, I mean, and I've been talking to him, and we like literally WhatsApp each other every week, once a week. And he said to me that the problem is to get the players at training, is to be able to get more numbers at training and stuff like that. And that's the problem. It's just unfortunately the logistics of the country.
Well, it also touches something else. A couple of years ago, I wrote an article, which I don't know if you know Dalton Stanford. Perhaps you probably do.
Yes, I know Dalton.
Because his relationship with Glendale Raptors. But
Paki.
Yeah, Paki, that's the guy. Yeah, don't tell me he said that. But Dalton and I are friends, and we were talking about this. He has this thing, the Rugby Corner, and so he used to put articles on there. So I wrote an article, which he published for a while, and it was about my opposition to expansion to the World Cup, adding more teams. Not that I don't want to see more teams, but there are, in my view, some serious problems with rugby union that had to be addressed first. For instance, bankrupt rugby unions. We're talking about USA Rugby bankrupt. Saru essentially bankrupt at that time. They had to take the game against Wales in D.C. just to get a paycheck for $750,000. I mean, I was happy to go to a third world stadium in D.C. to watch them play.
Yeah.
But they were bankrupt. That's why they did it. And then we see Zimbabwe going to Tunisia to qualify for the World Cup, and they were thrown out of their hotel, and they had to sleep rough because there was no money to pay for the hotel bill.
Yeah.
That's not a healthy state of the game.
No, definitely. I mean, if you look currently, I mean, obviously England, the RFU is talking about cutting their sevens program. Ooh. I mean, yesterday I saw on the news the Welsh Union, they are considering cutting their sevens program as well. I mean, it's sad. It's sad seeing these unions cutting the sevens programs. And I don't know if it's mismanagement of money. I don't know whether the top, the directors and the big guns making the decisions, whether they take too much money and not spending the money in the right places. I don't have the answers to that, but it's just sad to see, these unions and teams cutting their teams. Like, I mean, the sevens. I mean, sevens is an Olympic sport, and now you're taking Welsh out of the equation. You're taking England out of the equation. It's bizarre. It's really bizarre to see. Wow. You ask yourself, how did it happen? Why is it happening? Are they spending the money in the wrong places? And are they filling their pockets instead of filling, the stadiums? So it's a tough. Once again, politics. I mean, politics will always kill the game.
So England's talking about cutting their sevens team. So we won't see Dan Norton anymore. Seriously?
Nope.
That's insane.
There was a big story on the news about the RFU sevens players and how they've been treated in the last 2 weeks. They literally just got an email saying sorry, this is what's going to happen. The program has been cut. You're no longer part of the sevens program. There is no sevens program. It's just been horrible. It's absolutely been horrible. And I see the Welsh Union is now going that same route, thinking of cutting their sevens program.
That's crazy. Folks, you're listening to Chris White Africa on the Daba Africa channel. My special feature guest today is Andre Snyman, Springbok number 636 rugby coach. And now I'm going to break a cardinal rule here, Andre, because I don't ever ask questions I don't know the answer to. Shh, don't tell people that. But I did that a little bit earlier with the question about your brother because I was puzzled by who wasn't your brother, Tion. But so this is a question, and you have to be careful with these. So this guy said, ask, when Andre finishes coaching, will he be forced to do Lay's potato chip commercials? What's that all about? Did you?
Well, as long as he writes the check, maybe.
Okay, there you go.
No, I'm not sure what I'm going to be doing after my coaching. I love my coaching at the moment, and I'm going to coach as long as I can, even if it's in a wheelchair. That's my passion. I love coaching, and I got into coaching a very weird way, but yeah, or interesting way, should I say? And but yeah, I don't think I'm going to stop coaching very soon, unless there's a real opportunity falling on my lap. I doubt I'll. But even then, I'll still be coaching in the background as a hobby, no matter what. I absolutely enjoy developing players. And sharing the love of the game with them.
That's awesome. So there's a lot of stuff here. You kind of let it out of the bag earlier. You kind of ruined my scoop there. I didn't, but let's go to this now. So listen, I want to formally welcome you to the club. And what I mean by that, I think you know already, but the audience may not know. On just July 23rd, 2019, Andre Snyman became an American citizen, correct?
Yep, correct.
Well, welcome to the club.
No, thank you very much. A lot of people have asked me why have I become an American, and it's simple. It's not because of for me. It's not. It's for my kids. It's purely for my kids. I made this decision for my kids, is to give them an opportunity in life, to give them an opportunity to make a decision where they want to be in the world. Because unfortunately, having a South African passport, it limits your opportunities where you can live in the world, where you can work in the world, where you want to travel, just even if it's traveling. And I've been on the receiving end of that throughout my career. When the team goes through that line, because I'm a foreigner, I have to go through the alien line, and I have to get visas, and it's just an absolute mess if you want to travel on a South African visa. And I've decided, you know what, I want to try my best for my kids not to go through that. And I got this opportunity to go to America. I was fortunate that my wife, she's got a green card at the time. So we went through the whole application process. It took us 8 years to do it. But yeah, it's 8 years well wasted or spent. So I'm very happy. My kids are American citizens now. They can go anywhere in the world, and they can choose where they want to be, what they want to do. And that was the reason why it was top priority for me to get my citizenship so that my kids can get it, because it's their future. It's not about me, it's about them.
That's awesome. But like I said, seriously, welcome to the team.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. But the thing is that when people talk about America, they really don't understand or know much about America, including a lot of Americans, it seems, talk about how America... No, seriously, they talk about America as a place that doesn't welcome people. We naturalize over 1 million foreign nationals as American citizens every year. No country on the planet comes remotely close to letting people join their team and have the privileges and protections of our flag and of our government. Yeah. It's amazing.
No. America is an amazing country. I never really understood the whole American culture and everything until I lived there. And now that I've lived there for 8 years, and it's now, I left America a year ago and I'm in England now. And you don't understand how much I miss America. I absolutely miss America. I mean, it's just the conveniency of the country, the way you guys do things, well, the way we do things now that I'm American,
there you go.
It's just amazing. I absolutely love that country, and and people always go and they're trying to tease America. Oh, it's always better and bigger in America, but you know what? It is. It is bigger and better in America. So you know what? Until you've experienced it, don't shoot it down. Don't shoot it down. And what I always say to people is, the Americans are passionate. They are passionate people about what is close to their heart. And that's why they might come across as loud and so, but it's not because they're trying to be vain. It's just because they're proud of what's close to and dear to their heart, and they're passionate about it. So they mustn't take passion for granted and think the passion is being snobbish or being like out there. And that's why I sometimes get into arguments with people talking about America, and I'm like, don't shoot America until you haven't tried it. So it's I mean, I love the country. I wish I can move back there one day. So fingers crossed, hopefully I'll be back in America someday.
That'd be awesome. I have to say that as a child, I lived in 34 of the. Somebody's phone's ringing on your side, I think.
Yeah, just hold on. It's an alarm. Sorry about this.
No, that's okay. South Africans in the audience get the whole point about an alarm. You got to respond to that. You can't ignore that. No,
Sorry about that.
That's quite all right. I just told folks, I said, hey, South Africans get the whole point about an alarm. You can't ignore an alarm. So you just got to get up and got to answer it. But also, in the age of COVID, when you got up, I was almost like, okay, I hope he's got shorts on.
No, I'm good.
No, it's famously, we see journalists, who are sitting at home for major studios, and of course they get up or they've got their boxer shorts on. It's like, oh, God.
Exactly.
Not thinking it through. But listen, folks, you're listening to Chris White Africa on the Indaba Africa channel. I'm here in Central Pennsylvania. My guest is Andre Snyman, Springbok 636, now a head rugby coach in the United Kingdom, in Doncaster, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct? Yep.
Yes, it's a school called Hill House School in Doncaster. It's an independent school, so it's a co-ed school, boys and girls. So yeah, it's just outside of Doncaster.
So I've got a couple questions I want to bring in. Andre, you can go a bit longer. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I'm good.
Yeah. So we're actually, as I mentioned to you before we went on, we're peaking. We're almost at 100 people watching right now, which is
brilliant.
So, which always happens when you get to the top of the hour. Okay, does my guest continue or do we stop it abruptly? But
hopefully they'll stay.
Well, hopefully they'll stay. Exactly. So I've got a few comments from the chat, but I want to get to a few topics you and I were going to discuss, and that's girls rugby, women's rugby, and then we'll talk about the Glendale Raptors, if you don't mind. And I had a question about Gary Gold as well, and I have a comment, and then I'll ask your question. So I'm going to get to those three things, but let me get a couple things from the chat that people ask, because, I mean, it's all about the audience. If we don't address the things people want to hear about, then they're not going to tune in. So that's where
absolutely, I agree.
So Hank Klopper said, listen, best coach and captain you ever played under. Who would you say that was?
All right, so my best coach, to start off with, that would be Nick Mallett.
Okay.
So the reason why I say Nick Mallett is because he was very consistent. He made you believe that you were the best player in the jersey, and he was passionate about the game. I wouldn't say he was the most technical and tactical coach, but the thing is, as a player, and I can only speak for myself, is I wanted to play for him. I wanted to perform well because he was so passionate about the game, and I didn't want to disappoint him. And then obviously myself, and then obviously the supporters. So Nick Mallett, hands down, the best coach that I played under. There was a few other coaches as well. Phil Davies, Stuart Lancaster, that I've played under or that's coached me. Eugene van Wyk at the Blue Bulls. As also was pretty good in my early career. So there was a lot of coaches that's coached me, but at the end of the day, people got to understand rugby is rugby. A catch and a pass and a draw and a pass, a tackle, those techniques will stay with you forever, no matter what kind of coach or who you are. I mean, coaching a tackle and coaching people how to catch and pass and how to draw and pass on a 2v1 or a 3v2, those principles stay the same, no matter who you coaches you or no matter what. The difference between a good coach and a bad coach, in my opinion, is motivation. Can you motivate the players? Do you have the respect of the players? Do you pay attention to your players and their needs? And the game has changed where nowadays you can't just tell a player, this is how you're going to do it. No, it's becoming more player orientated. You got to understand, because at the end of the day, it's them, it's the player that's on the field, not you as a coach. So if the player doesn't want to do it, then he's not going to do it, and if he's going to do it reluctantly, you're probably going to lose the game. So you need to, it's a very fine line between telling him you have to do it this way and give him some guidelines. But for me, a good coach is a motivator, somebody that can motivate and manage the players. Best captain, I would probably say Gary Teichmann. Mm-hmm. Franco Pina, brilliant person, great captain. I can't say enough of him. Unfortunately, I haven't played too many games underneath him as my captain. Gary Teichmann was my captain in my era. Brilliant man. Once again, great leader, not a big loud mouth, rah captain. Got down, said what he had to say, and he had our respect. So yeah, definitely Gary Teichmann.
Awesome. Proudly Neanderthals throwing just different players' names out here in the chat. I guess he's trying to Jan Ellis, Frick Duprier, Morne Duplessis, just throwing some names out there.
Well, I don't think I was born in that time.
I know, exactly. Well, that's what I'm saying. He's just throwing names out. It's Hey,
if you can, John Smith was a good captain as well, and Nas Buerta was a good captain for the few times that he was a captain. And you can just go on and on and on. Yeah. But unfortunately, I think for me, those were the ones that I'm going to stick with.
Yeah, no, it's not just the style of play. It's just not the professionalization. It's not just the pay and all that stuff, and also the development, physiotherapy, and all those things. It's not just that. It's also the kit. This thing I'm wearing here, this is brutal. With Durban, this would be because it's cotton.
Yeah.
Now you've got these jerseys that are so thin and they fit so tight, and they're so. It's even the kit has changed, and the game has really adapted in the last 20 years. I'd have to say. Would you agree?
No, absolutely. I've every now and again, I'll post a picture of myself on my Facebook page or my Twitter or my LinkedIn account, and people will look at our jerseys and they go like, "Whoa, bring the cotton back, bring the cotton back." And I'm like, "No, you don't want the cotton back. Yeah. It's heavy, it's big." Sometimes we get off the field and after a raining game and mud, just the jersey alone weighs about maybe 4 kilograms. It's just a heavy piece of clothing, and it just, at the time we thought it looks flashy, but if you look at the jerseys nowadays, they look smart. The jerseys really look smart. They're tight fitting. They're made of material that can stretch and breathe, and it's just, and that's what the professional era or the professionalism has brought to the game. It's a business. You got to run it like a business now.
Well, I can attest 36 years in the Army, marching in the rain, getting muddy. Your clothing definitely gets a lot heavier.
It gets heavy. It gets a lot heavier.
It gets a lot heavier because we got layers and stuff too. So Croy Thompson says, what does Andre Snyman think about the new direction of Super Rugby teams going to Pro 16, which isn't decided yet, by the way. That's still in the works. But Pro 16, I suggested one team go to Premiership. I don't know if England would be up for that, but I think a South African team, either the Bulls or the Stormers in Premiership. But anyway, that's just my thoughts. And in your opinion, should they go with the Currie Cup, Champions Cup League model with Australia, New Zealand, or another option? So what do you think is going to happen with the death of Super Rugby?
Oh, it's a tournament that's been going for so long, and I always say, don't fix something that's not broken. I understand there's probably logistical problems, financial commitments. And at the end of the day, all I want to see is, I just want to see what's best for the players and what's best for the sport, to be able to, for teams to be able to go out there and play in tournaments and leagues and stuff like that. So it's a tough one. I think let's leave that for the guys that are in charge of that and let them decide who plays who. All I want to see is just give the players game time, player welfare. Don't give them too much time. they got to rest as well. So don't kill them by playing every weekend. The players, they still human beings. They're not robots. So I think potentially if they want to cut some games out of the Super Rugby, it's maybe a good thing, because then there's less travel, there's less games. The players will be well rested, and they won't be tired when they play in games. The Bulls or the Sharks or a South African team in the Premiership, logistically, I'm not sure it's going to work, especially now with this whole COVID thing. As it is, the Cheetahs and the Eastern Kings, I think they withdrew from the Pro 14. I mean, they've been basically kicked out of the Pro 14 as already. So it just shows you, they've tried the South African team in the Northern Hemisphere League. It worked, but it becomes a logistical nightmare, and it must be costly. It must be costly to fly a team over here, keep them in a hotel or on a base for 4 or 5 weeks. Go back. You got to think about the family time. There's a lot of moving parts with a decision that needs to be made like that. So that's why I say, I mean, it's a tough one for me to make a decision on that. I just think, all I just say, I just care about the player, and at the end of the day, we just want to watch rugby. You're right.
Now, one of my viewers, Morton Christie, was trapped in Mauritius when the lockdown took place in South Africa, and he took forever to get out because of the way they did repatriation flights. But he's back in South Africa. He went through his 2 weeks of quarantine, and then they lifted things. But I think that he probably overindulged when they lifted the alcohol ban, because he says the Sharks are the Manchester United of rugby. What are you drinking, Morton? No, come on. Come on, that's a bit much. I got to call BS on that one. Anyway,
yeah.
So Jack Sparrow says, listen, Andre, what did you like best in the back line, playing center or wing?
Definitely center.
Okay.
Absolutely, that was my best position. 13 outside center was my best position, my preferred position as well. It gave me the freedom to run with the ball, and it gave me the freedom to create something. It gave me the ability to crash the ball off the 12 or with a skip 1 from the 10. It just gives me that flexibility to do what I wanted to do on attack. On defense, it did put me under pressure. I mean, I think probably the most difficult position to defend on a pitch, in my opinion, is probably the 13 channel nowadays, because you've got so many traffic. If I mean traffic, I mean players running into your channel that you need to defend. You've got the blind winger coming around the corner, especially with the balls that they play today out the back. They play the ball like either to the front player or to the player behind. There's just a lot of people running into your channel that you need to defend. And if you don't make your decision quick and early and you can read the game, you're in trouble. So yes, definitely 13. On defense, it kept me on my toes. I was fortunate that I had a bit of speed. So if I was in a situation to get myself out of the situation on defense, I could do that because I could explode to the left or to the right to make the tackle. Wing was good. I enjoyed playing wing, but it was it bound me to my side of the pitch. You know, if I was a right wing or a left wing, I had to stay there. And yes, as a coach, you would like your wingers to move around and insert into the back line every now and again. But you know what, if you're a right winger and you go all the way to the left wing and you play on the left wing, you know, if there was a turnover ball, who's going to cover you on the right wing? Then the coach is going to say to you, you were out of position. So it just restricts you a little bit on the wing in terms of positional play. But it also, you know, and especially the times you get the ball is very limited. So if you do get the ball, you got to make good use of it. Where at center, you have a little bit more ball time, so to speak. You get the ball in your hands a little bit more often. And it just, you're all over the pitch. You know, it's the middle of the pitch is yours. You can go wherever, which I really, really enjoyed. So yeah, definitely 13 was my preferred position.
No, that's a great answer. We were talking a few moments ago about the expansion, or not expansion, but moving from Super Rugby to these other, potentially to Pro 14, or as I'll call it, the Pro 16, or even Premiership. But you brought up a topic which I think is critically important, and this has been a challenge with the expansion of professional rugby. It's player welfare, player safety. I mean, I was crushed to see Sam Warburton retire. That really sucked. I mean, because one of my favorite players, but because of head injuries, he left. And then we saw Pat Lambie, because of head injuries, leave. And then I was actually at the game, I think it was in Birmingham, in the 2015 World Cup when Jean de Villiers had his jaw broken against Samoa, and that was the end of his career. And it's a shame. And I think some of the contributing factors there, if you agree or disagree, let me know. But some of the contributing factors there are Currie Cup, Super Rugby, the Springboks test, players going up to the Northern Hemisphere playing or going to Japan and playing. And basically, you can play rugby all year round based on the schedule.
No, definitely, Chris. I mean, you basically answered yourself. I mean, there's just so many contributing factors about players retiring early. I mean, let's take injury out of the equation, okay? Let's take injury out of the equation. I honestly believe we all love the game. We all want to watch the game. But I do think there's too much rugby. There's way too much rugby being played. And that's why the players are breaking down. I remember when I was a youngster starting playing for the Northern Transvaal, I mean, I think we played like 28 games a season, and we thought that's a lot of games. Now they literally play every weekend. It's just amazing. I think the average now must be close to like 40 games a season for a player. That's a lot. And the game has become faster. The players are becoming stronger. The hits are bigger. It's the whole game has changed, and that's why I think a lot of teams, they do get the dynamics right by rotation system. You have to bring in a rotation system where your squad is not just 25 big. Your squad has to be 35 big, and all 35 players are equally adept and good enough to start. And you just got to rotate. And that's, I think, one of the reasons why those Springboks, sorry to say it, won the World Cup. Because if you look at their bench, the bench could have started the game.
Oh, I mean, for any other rugby nation, we would have happily taken them on the Eagles, every single one of the bench.
Exactly. So, and I think that is what needs to happen, is the fact that the squads, if they want to play all year round, the squads have to get bigger and start the player rotation system, because once again, I can only compare it with 15 years ago. We had players retire at the age of 35, 32. I mean, myself, I retired at 33. So you had players retiring at a later age, where now they retire at 27, 28. And it's because they've played too much rugby. They've burnt out, and that's a sad thing. And then you get the flip side to the coin, is you get kids at the age of 18 started playing international rugby. I mean, that kid will never last until 33. He's not going to last until the age of 33, and that's not even talking about the front row. If he's a 18-year-old prop or an 18, 19-year-old hooker, I can't see him making 28 with his career, unless he's being managed properly. So yes, it is a concern for me, watching the kids getting younger and younger playing professionally. I just hope they have the strength and the right gym programs and nutrition and all those things to help them last as long as they can. But yeah, I sound like a stuck record. The game has changed. I mean, it's unfortunately it has changed. It's become a business. It's absolutely become a business, and the players are just basically a pawn in the game, and they're just being moved around like a chess game. They're just being moved around, and I just hope that the coaches and the unions do take the player welfare into account. But I think to solve the problem is just to make your squads bigger. And use the player rotation system, which I know some clubs do. They do that. They will look at their fixtures, and they say, right, this is an important game. This one is, maybe we can potentially lose this game. We'll still be in the running. They need to sit down and plan who they're going to bring in as reserves, rotate, and that way you get your player that's maybe a little bit younger time to get experience. So he doesn't always sit on the bench. He actually gets game time. And by getting game time, he's gaining experience So with experience, he could potentially play in the bigger games. So it's like a win-win situation.
Absolutely. So a few years ago, we were quite excited here in the U.S. because John Mitchell was named to be the Eagles coach. And no comment for or against John. I thought he did a pretty bang-up job. But one of the challenges, of course, was that he tried to live in South Africa and coach the team coming here. It didn't. I don't know if it worked particularly well, but he did have a winning record. I think he's the first USA head rugby coach that had a winning record in ages 9 and 8. But then he left, and we got Gary Gold, and we went undefeated in a test season, including beating Scotland. It was quite a season. Now our Rugby World Cup performance was a little disappointing, but I think there were reasons for that. But what are your thoughts on Gary Gold and USA Rugby?
No, I mean, I've got mixed emotions on that topic, on that question. I mean, like I say, I mean, one of the reasons why I went to America is to get involved in the rugby community, get involved in USA Rugby, so unfortunately it didn't work out. It didn't go that route. I've never been asked to be part of their training camps. I've never been asked to be part of although I was committed to Glendale. Yes, I understand that, but there's nothing wrong with just asking me to come in for a technical advisor for a few games or something like that. I've never been asked to help. I've never been asked to, and I've offered my services to I'm not going to mention names, and they just said to me, oh, don't worry, Andre, we've got enough coaches. And I was like, I'm not there to take a position. I'm just here to help. I just want to share my knowledge with you. I'm not here to I don't want a position. I don't want a coaching position at USA Rugby because I've got a current position at Glendale. I'm just here to help. I just want to share my knowledge and stuff. But anyway, I don't want to sound like sour grapes. But you know what? I think Gary came in. Once again, Gary is a great rugby brain. And I think he's made some changes. Once again, I think he made the players believe that they are the best in their position. He hasn't made a lot of not substitutes. What's the right word? Team selection. He didn't make a lot of changes. When it matters, which was good, which creates confidence in the players. So yeah, I mean, I want to see America succeed. I really honestly want to see them succeed. And I think they have the ability and potentially the players to compete at First Nation, at the first tier. They do. It's just, I think they just need to maybe restructure their infrastructure, if that makes sense, and get the right people in the right places. Then potentially it will work. They will definitely play at a higher level. Once again, unfortunately, as you know, the American players are all scattered all over the country. It's a very similar to a Namibia situation. They scattered all over the country. They come, 2 weeks before test, they come together. They train for 2 weeks, and you expect them to perform. No, it's not going to work. They need to be able to get these test players together for a longer. I mean, that is why the Sevens program is so successful, because they got the players living at the Olympic Stadium. So they train together 24/7. They together the whole time. They get to know each other. Where with the rugby 15s, they scattered all over the country. They come together a week or two before a test, and you expect them to perform. It's not going to happen, because the way they are being coached at their clubs, it's different than the way they're being coached at the international level or at the training camp. And, it takes a while to get out of that, the club coaching ethos, to get back into a Gary Gold camp. It takes a while to let go of the way you play your rugby at the club. This is the way to play now. So it takes time, and they don't have that time to get those players on the same page before a test. But I mean, I'm positive. I want to stay positive about American rugby. I think they're on the right track. But like I say, it's a work in progress.
Yeah, absolutely. And Major League Rugby, from my perspective, is a great development. It was in its third season, going really well. I don't like a single New York sports franchise. I detest New York sports franchises. But the moment they announced Rooney and I started seeing the signings, I became a Rugby United fan, and I've been with them all the way. I would drive 4 hours and pay about $50 in tolls to get to a game. on Coney Island, and I went to every game last year that they were home, and massive fan. So hopefully Major League Rugby will get us there. We're also getting lots of South Africans coming up and playing here, and not just folks who've been, maybe the tail end of the career, like Joe Peterson playing for the San Diego Legion, but we're also getting young kids playing. Plus, we've got a number of South Africans whose family came to the U.S., like Hanko Hammershøis, who's fantastic for the Eagles. So hopefully that'll keep developing. And then I have to say, when it comes to sevens, I mean, no one's going to say anything bad about Mike Friday for me, man. I'll tell you, that guy is awesome. And where our sevens have gone, it's just been absolutely amazing. Last year, every single semifinal in the HSBC 7 Series, the USA, first team to ever do it, tantalizing close to winning the title for the season. We were so close.
Yeah, no, definitely. I agree with you. And, I mean, he's done an amazing job with the sevens team. He obviously got them on the right path, and he gave them something. He came in with something, made them believe in themselves, or his coaching philosophy, or I don't know what he did, but he got the magic potion. And, they played really, really super rugby. I remember I was involved with a little bit of defense when Matt Hawkins was there. I helped him a little bit with the defensive side of the sevens. And then unfortunately, Matt got asked to step down. And then I had to step down at the same time. And then Mike came in. And yeah, I mean, it was great being part of that setup. And then Mike came in and he just turned it around, which was brilliant. And it's good to see. And that's why I say to you, if the sevens can do it, I'm positive the 15s can do it as well. And I do believe the MLR will definitely benefit the players, or the players will benefit from the MLR. Sorry. I just hope that the MLR is sustainable.
Yeah.
That is my biggest concern, is because at the end of the day, the only way, as you know, and most of us know, the only way a club is sustainable is bums in seat.
Yeah.
Correct. And I don't see bums in seat. I don't see 20, 30,000 people at a stadium. I don't see that. And that is the only way the clubs will sustain. And I'm not sure whether the big punters, the money punters behind the clubs, the owners of the clubs, whether they can have enough financial backing to carry the club for 2, 3, 4 years until we have enough bums in seats. Then it's a knock-on effect. You ask yourself, why isn't there enough bums in seat? Is it because people in America are not educated about the sport? They don't understand it. They don't know what it is. That's why they don't go there. It's such a knock-on effect. You can ask yourself 100 questions. Why? But all I'm saying is it's positive. It's growing. But is it going to grow fast enough to sustain the clubs? I hope so. Because I do believe it's a good competition. It's like you say, they bring in all these international players that can help the local players lift their standard of play, which is brilliant. So it's. I think the model and the concept is great. At the end of the day, it's like you said, it's just a financial thing. Everything. It's about the financial sustainability. And I hope they can sustain it.
Absolutely. That's the bottom line with this. And now there's going to be a MLR franchise in Hawaii, the first professional sports franchise out there. That's backed by a group of Pacific Islanders who used to play for the All Blacks. Of course, I call that the farm system for the All Blacks. That would be the Pacific Islands. That's what they're always worried about. So,
but you see, but I mean, that's brilliant. I mean, it's brilliant to hear those things, but it's logistically now you got to fly all the way to Hawaii.
It's a long way.
It's a long way. So now you're wasting all that money to fly over there, and could that money not be spent better somewhere else? That's that whole catch-22 situation about you want to develop things, but how do you develop it, and the money issues, and it's just, it's a tough one. It's a tough one.
Yeah, no, for me, I was actually, to be honest, a little surprised at Major League Rugby. I guess they must have had some big money behind them, was my supposition, when they put teams in New York and Seattle and Texas. I mean, you couldn't get further geographically apart. I thought maybe they'd concentrate on the East Coast, the Atlantic Seaboard, or maybe in California, and that, but they're going all out. So but I wish them the best. I really wanted to succeed.
Oh no, absolutely. I 100% can't agree more. I wish them best, and I want to see them succeed. Because I think it will be beneficial for the sport in America.
So listen, Andre, I have a bad habit, so I need self-regulate and self-check myself. I've had 4 hour and 20-minute streams. We're not going to do that to your family today. So,
That's
so
fine.
you've been very generous with your time. But I wanted to get back to something you mentioned earlier, because this is something that touched a lot of people. It was really sad to see. It was unfortunate to see it happen. But I'm going to ask you about this, and then and unless you want to stay much longer, then I'll ask you for final thoughts or things you'd like to share. But before we get there, I haven't really asked you about girls rugby and your coaching. Do you want to stay and talk about that, or do you want to save that for a future conversation?
No, let's talk about it. It's
Okay.
it's something that's very close to my heart, so I'm happy to talk even 5 hours about it.
Okay. Well, this I want
As
to
long
ask.
as long as I don't bore you.
No, bored. No, I'm not bored at all. Trust me. It's listen. If I can stay engaged and enthralled by a conversation with a guy that spent 17 years as a panel beater, then clearly I can listen.
Good.
And rugby is one of my first loves. So look. I mean, I don't mean to bring up a difficult thing. I imagine it's not the easiest because you were roommates for so long. You were teammates. But when Joost van der Westhuizen passed away, it touched so many people all over the world. I mean, people, not just in rugby nations, but people had heard his name. Maybe because it's an interesting name if you're not an Afrikaans speaker, but also because he was such a great rugby talent and a fascinating celebrity, I guess, because he was a celebrity. So you knew him probably professionally longer than most people. And what was he like? I mean, as a person, I mean, was he the celebrity? Was he an interesting guy?
He was a very interesting person. To be fair, he was a kind of guy, very family driven. He loved his family. He absolutely, it was all about his mom and his dad and his two brothers, and I think the fact that rugby, and he was a brilliant rugby player. Let's we don't have to talk about that. I mean, we all know that. And I think the fact that the professional game has basically interfered with his private life in terms of time that he wants to spend with his family and time that he wants to spend with his mates. The professional lifestyle has taken that away from him, because he had to do photo shoots and he had to do interviews and he became a celebrity. And I think I don't want to use the word hate that. I think he struggled to control that, because he wanted to be with his family and he wanted to be with his friends and he wanted to do what he wanted to, but he couldn't, because he always was dragged away by fame and by interviews and all that stuff. So eventually he started adopting this attitude. Whenever he's in the public eye, when you meet him, he'll come across as snobbish, he'll come across as cold, as not interested, stuck up, all those negative words. And the reason why he did that is to blow the people off and basically show them, I'm not interested, and that's why, unfortunately, the people got this perception about him being stuck up and all that stuff. Their first impressions when they meet him is because in the back of his mind, he goes, oh, here we go again, and he'd rather be somewhere else. But if you get him on a Sunday morning after a game at his house and at a lunchtime barbecue or something like that, he is the nicest man, down to earth, funny. He is so funny. I mean, he's really a funny man. He entertains, he laughs, and because that is him. That is who he is. But unfortunately, in the public eye, he had to change. He had to put this facade on. And it was sad to see that as a friend, how different he is at his home or at our houses when we have a barbecue at my place, and how he acted in the public with supporters and media and stuff like that. Just two completely different people. And I respected him for that. And I couldn't hold it against him. There was a few times where I would feel the same, where I got dragged away from my family because of media commitments and stuff like that as a professional rugby player. And I understood why he felt the way he felt and why he would pretend to be this not approachable person. I'm not approachable. Stay away from me. But it's just sad to he's gone. He's not here with us anymore. But the interesting thing is just to start talking about this not so nice topic. You look at James Small. James Small is the same. Unfortunately, he passed away. Chester Williams, he passed away. Jonah Lomo, He passed away. There's some serious big names that's unfortunately not with us anymore. And all those players, they were phenomenal, and it's just sad to see them, die and pass away. But it's just memories. We create memories with them, and we just hold on to that.
Well, that 95 World Cup winning team has been jinxed, as some people say,
Oh,
with so many players passing away
absolutely.
prematurely. You mentioned Jonah Lomu, obviously not Springbok, but someone asked about Jonah Lomu earlier. Did you play against him?
Oh yeah, absolutely. We've played a few times against him. He's he's a beast on the field. Very, very. He's a phenomenal player with ball in hand. It was just unbelievable. But once again, off the pitch, such an humble person, very humble. He'll come to you and he'll shake your hand, and it's like he'll be very humble and drink a beer with you and stuff like that. It's just amazing how sometimes the public will see these icon players in the group as not approachable. But once you get to know them and you get to know the real player behind the jersey, they're just humans. They just like us. They just normal people with a talent to play rugby.
Well, while we're talking, Andre Jacobs, who's in China, he actually works in China, said that Nick Bester has been attacked again. He's 60 now, and I just looked it up to make sure it was actually happening. He was riding, I guess, in the Mahalisberg, and he looks pretty. He's in hospital. He's beaten up pretty badly. This is just horrific. I mean, he's the 1991 Comrades champion. I mean, that's a race I once thought I wanted to run. You're from KZN, so you're probably like, were you crazy? No. Because I'm like, okay, it's an ultra marathon. It sounds cool. And when I thought about it, Andre, I said, you know what? I want to run from Pietermaritzburg down to the ocean. And I talked to people who did the Comrades, like, no, think about that. You don't want to do that. And I thought about it. I said, you know what? It's all downhill mostly, so that'd be rough on your tendons and your joints. And they said, exactly right. The best way to run it is from Durban to Pietermaritzburg. But you know what I decided in the end? The best way to run it is to watch it on television.
Oh, no. Chris, my philosophy in life is, why run if nobody is chasing you?
Well, listen, Andre, that kind of goes along with my philosophy about jumping out of planes. I was in the Army for 36 and a half years, and I don't understand why people jump out of perfectly good planes. That parachute's only for an emergency, in my view.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No. There's no way. I only run when somebody chases me. That's it.
Yikes. Hey, well, thanks for sharing those insights about Just, because, I mean, a lot of people didn't get to see that part of him. They just saw the celebrity, and over time, if you disagree, let me know. But nothing about Just, but the celebrity became kind of caustic, and a lot of people didn't like the celebrity of Just van der Westhuizen. Yeah. But that wasn't who the guy was.
No. Unfortunately, like I say, I mean, he was not this cleanest person out there. He had a history. Yeah. He had some skeletons in his cupboard. We all do. Yeah. And unfortunately, the media got a hold of that and they pulled it apart. And there was really some tough times for him. With what he's done in his life and stuff. But I think he took accountability for it. He had the courage of his convictions. It's just sad to see that the media actually brought out the ugly in the player. And it's that old saying, nobody forgets when I do something wrong, and nobody remembers when I do something right. So unfortunately, that's what happened with him. They only remember the bad stuff that he did, but they forget the good stuff he did. Behind the scene, going to the hospital and working with kids with cancer, donating funds to kids with underprivileged and buying food for underprivileged people on the street, buying bread rolls and stuff. Nobody sees that. Nobody saw that about Just. The good work that he did behind the scenes. They all just see the ugly stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why I wanted to ask you about it, because you get some insight because you knew the guy. And the rest of us didn't get to know him that way. We just got to see him play and see the celebrity. So thanks a lot for it. Bye, Doc.
No worries.
Appreciate
Pleasure.
That. Okay, so let me shift a little bit here. Now, we were talking. You were saying earlier that the Sevens program may be folded in England, and maybe I won't get to see Dan Norton anymore. That's just crazy. Wales is folding their program, and that just begs the question: what about women's rugby, girls rugby? Because that's something that's often, in my view, neglected by World Rugby. It doesn't give the attention it needs to, and I see them. You don't have to comment on this. This is Chris commenting here, so but if you want to, you can. But it's. I look at World Rugby, and while I've met Sir Bill Beaumont, and I have respect for the organization, I get a little frustrated because because they do things that I consider virtue signaling. Like, they decided not to call it the Women's Rugby World Cup anymore. And I didn't like that. I thought that was egalitarian. So now we have a Rugby World Cup every 2 years. Huh? What's that all about? But that to me doesn't accomplish anything. What accomplishes things for women is finding ways to grow the sport, get it on television, get bums in the seats, as you say, and make it so that women can make money off the sport. And now, if they're cutting sevens, what's going to happen to women's programs is my concern. Now, the reason I mention this is because you coach boys and girls, correct?
Yeah, absolutely correct. And just to your point, funny enough, rugby is in our family. My wife, Philippa, was sitting this morning. We were talking, and she said to me, Andre, did you see that women's sport, women's rugby, has grown by 30%? Across the world, which is positive, and that is brilliant. And that is why, and I said earlier before we started this, women's rugby is quite close to my heart because of my daughter. She's only 12 years old, but I do believe that she's got a future, and I would like to be part of that. And if I can make that future happen for her, I'll do anything I can. But women's sport is especially rugby. It has to grow. It must grow, because there's so many girls out there that loves the game and they want to play. Yes, football. A lot of girls are playing football all over the world. It's not as contact as rugby, but you'll be surprised. Some of these girls, they love the contact. They are like sponges. They soak up the energy. They soak up the knowledge, because they don't know anything else. They've never played this game. So at the age of 13 or 15, they've never played rugby. So they like a blank canvas, and all they want to do is play rugby. And they actually enjoy the contact, for funny enough, and they really enjoy like running into people and stuff. Some of them are a bit squeamish, but once you teach them the right technique and you explain to them what to do, they just absolutely enjoy it. And I do believe that there's a big future for women's rugby. I mean, if you look at some of the Premiership clubs here in the UK, most of them have a women's program as well. It's just sad that some of the programs don't get the same funding as the men's programs. Once again, I understand why, because it's just a lot of maybe, I don't know what's the right word, tradition. People would say, oh, no, women shouldn't play rugby. It's a man's game. It's a man's game. Women shouldn't play rugby. No, I mean, why not? Women are equal as men. They can do exactly the same as us, So there shouldn't be that discrimination about, oh, no, it's just a men's game or something like that. I don't think that's right. I think it's rather, let's develop them. They might be at a different level. Whether that level is higher or lower than the men, we don't know. I'm just saying that you can't expect women to be at the same level as men, because men has played the game longer. But I think each entity in their own right is brilliant. So if you look at the quality of the rugby that they play at international level, England, Ireland, New Zealand, Australia, if you look at those women's teams and you look at the sevens, even 15s, the quality of those games are just as good as the men. They might be 2 steps slower than the men because that's just genetics, but it doesn't take anything away from them being good. So yes, I would love to. It's my goal to develop women's rugby. I've developed the program at the school. When I got to the school, there was only 2 girls playing rugby, which was my daughter and another girl in year 11. And within 3 months, we had 45 girls playing rugby. Wow. So yes, and it's just making the game enjoyable. Show them that it's safe. Let them enjoy it, play games, let them interact with each other, and they just, like I said, I can't wait to go back to school and start over again, and hopefully get a program where more and more girls will get involved at the school, and then eventually I would like to go to a club level. There are already at club levels, there are some girls programs, but I want to get involved in the coaching side of things and help the coaches coach. I don't want to take their jobs. Once again, I'm not there to take their positions. I'm just there to share my knowledge and share them maybe do things slightly different, maybe look at this, try this. That's my goal. And then ultimately, I would like my daughter and maybe my son to head back to the US and go and play at a college there, because they won't take up a foreign spot because they're American. So I would like to let them go back to America and play for a college there, and then ultimately get involved there as well. So that's why, fingers crossed, I would like to go back to America one day and start a women's program there. I've been thinking about trying to find ways and talk to companies to start a girls program or an academy somewhere in America, purely just for girls. I mean, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Rhino Academy.
Yes.
There's the Rhinos Academy. There's the Tiger Rugby Academy. So there's all these academies, and yes, there are girls involved in some of those academies, but I want to try and put up an academy purely just for women, just for girls. And it's just to try and find that right company, that right person to click with, and where that will back me and say, right, Andre, you know what? We'll back you. Let's do this. Because people are still a little bit skeptical about women's rugby. And I just got to show them that there's a future, and hopefully I can get people behind me and we can do that. So it's a work in progress, bit of a pie in the sky. But yes, girls rugby is very close to my heart. And that's, like I said, it's purely for my daughter. And if I can create a pathway for my daughter and other girls, I would love to do that.
No, it's brilliant. I was just sitting here, Andre, while you were talking, sketching some notes of things that why I love rugby, and especially why I think it's important for girls to get into it. You know, I talk to South Africans and I talk about rugby. I talk about girls rugby, and they say to me, "Girls don't play rugby." I'm like, "Yeah. They do."
That's the first reaction. The first reaction.
They do, and the fact that you don't know that. I mean, listen, if you've never watched women play rugby, all you have to do is watch Mowgli Harvey's try in the 2014 Women's World Cup in Paris at Jean Bouin Stadium. I was there.
Yeah.
Oh my God, the best try I've ever seen in my entire life. Amazing. It's a shame she got injured after that and then dropped from the team in Canada, but she was unbelievable. And she was as fast as anybody except maybe Perry Baker and Carlin Isles in the sevens. But yeah, but some of the words I put down here. Oh, okay, good.
But the other thing is, Chris, I mean, I've got this girl that started at the school. She's never played, and she actually wrote me a personal note when she's finished, and she said there, "Coach, I could never find a sport that I like. I tried hockey and I couldn't enjoy that. I tried netball. I didn't enjoy that. The minute I started playing rugby, I absolutely fell in love, and I found a sport where I belong." That was her words. I found a sport where I belong. And I just looked at it and I was like, you know what? That is what's creating it. It's another sport where girls can belong to something. And the beauty about rugby is, like we all know, there's different positions for different body shapes.
Exactly.
You don't have to be 6'4" to play volleyball. You know, if you're not 6'4", 6'7", you're not going to play volleyball or basketball. You know, with rugby, it's not like that. Whether you're short, tall, it doesn't matter what body shape you are or ability. There's a position for you in the team. And that is, and the other thing is with rugby that I really, really like is everybody interacts with everybody. Everybody can score. You know, it's not just one person that scores the whole time. You know, it's not just center forward, or it's not just the quarterback or the wide receivers. It's everybody can score. Everybody can run with the ball.
Yep.
Everybody feels like they contribute to the team's performance. And that to me is important for girls. And girls love that, because girls love to, you know, be part of something and interact with each other. And, you know, there's not a lot of egos. Like with the boys, there's egos. There's a bit of like, hey, look at my muscles, and there's too much testosterone and all that stuff. Where with the girls, it's not like that. It's a completely different person you're dealing with. It's a person that wants to, it's all about teamwork, and let's just do this together. And, you know, they're there for each other. They support each other. It's just so nice to see.
No, absolutely. And that's the other thing I love about rugby too. I mean, not just girls, but guys too, but is that, I mean, you can have so many different body types in play. I mean, everyone thinks that you got to be this big guy with cauliflower ears, you know. No, you don't have to be. I mean, look, I mean, you got Cheslin Colby and you've got Lut Diaga on the same team. Talk about polar opposites of physical appearance.
Correct.
And both make amazing contributions to the team. Cheslin Colby,
Absolutely.
oh, what a dynamo. That guy. And
I know.
and people are like, okay, he's fast. Yeah, but have you seen him hit? Oh my God, he can take guys out.
I
It's
mean,
amazing.
I mean, pound for pound, I think he punched way above his body weight.
But the words I was looking at, and you've touched on a little bit there. So when I think about rugby and I think about girls, it's a great mechanism, a vehicle for building self-esteem, which is especially important for young teen girls, which deal with all kinds of beauty and appearance issues, which are nonsense. But that's just how kids grow up. That's a reality we have to realize. So self-esteem, comradeship, not in the Soviet communist style, but camaraderie, teamwork, respect, self-respect, all of these things, they're all things that kids get out of rugby, and that alone. And also, there's a lot of players on the pitch, so a lot of people can get an opportunity to get out there and get on. Plus, you can rotate players around. It's much better than a game like soccer, in my view.
No, absolutely. I mean, I think we've touched on all of that. You know, it's just, like I say, it's a team sport. You know, everybody's involved. Everybody's got to pull their weight. You know, it's not like soccer where the goalie or the defender just stand at the back and just wait for the ball to come to them. No, with rugby, you got to be there every second. You got to make a decision every second. You got to be there to support the player next to you. It's a team. It's a sport where you're involved the whole time. You're involved. You're making decisions. You got to help. You rely on each other the whole time. There's not a lot of time where you just stand there and wait for something to happen. No.
Yeah. So listen, I'm going to do this, Andre, because you've been incredibly generous with time. So I'm not going to go beyond 2 hours because we're coming up on 2 hours, and not just because
thanks,
not just because I want a sandwich. No, I'm just kidding. But but seriously, so I'm going to invite you back and ask you to come back, an open invitation. We can talk about these topics or something you want to focus on more about rugby. We can keep it to a shorter conversation so it doesn't eat up all your time and your family doesn't feel left out. But before I go, someone asked a question about, and I'm going to give you a chance to wrap up here before we wrap up.
No worries.
About Sean van Rensburg. I guess was he someone involved in you moving to the States? I don't know who that is.
Yes. So Sean van Rensburg, his nickname was Busty. Okay. The way I got involved, he's pretty much the main reason why I got involved in coaching. So when I retired in 2007, I went back to South Africa to start a family and settle down, get into construction, being a project manager and a quality controller. I thought, that is my future. That's where I'm heading. That's what I'm going to be doing. My afterlife after rugby. And Sean van Rensburg and myself, we were having a barbecue at my place, a braai, as we would say in South Africa.
No, I've got to interrupt you real quick because a couple people said, "Wait a second, that can't be real." A rugby player saying a barbecue? Well, he's got an American passport now, so I'm like the only American that says braai. So anyway, you're allowed.
Yeah. So we had a braai, and we were just sitting there talking, and then he just out of the blue, he just said to me, "Andre, you're being selfish." And I said, "Hang on a second, why do you say that?" I sort of almost got offended by that. And he says, "You've played this game for 15 years. Mm-hmm. Why are you not sharing your knowledge and experience with players? And why don't you coach?" And I thought about it and I said, okay, he's got a point. And then, I thought about it a couple of days and discussed it with Philippa and everything. And then eventually I thought, you know what, let me try it. Why don't? I've got nothing to lose. I went to the local, the club that I was associated with. And I said, "Hey, do you guys mind if I just come and have a look and see what you guys do?" And he's like, "Yeah, no, sure." And then eventually I was like, "Okay, hang on." And then I started seeing things that I could change. I started seeing things that I could improve on. And I was like, "Okay, hang on a second. I come from a point of view where I can tell them how to do it because I've been there, I've done it, I know it works. Instead of them trying over and over and over and over and not getting it right, let me give them the tool or give them the right way and let them do it the right way from get-go and not trying to figure it out." And that's how I got into coaching. And then obviously one thing led to another. I got this opportunity in America to go and coach there. And now I'm hooked on coaching. I'm absolutely hooked on coaching. So that's how I got involved in coaching.
Couple quick questions before we do wrap up from the chat to get these. And then Vlok Siljers, he's really into kicking. Is he going to be
Yes.
good? Is he going to be a good interviewer if I get him on?
I think he will be. He's quite a character. I
That's
think
what I thought.
Flocky he's a good character. He's got some interesting stories. Yeah, no, Flocky and I we've played against each other. He's now a kicking coach. He's worked with the French team as well. So I think there's going to be some really interesting questions, or it could be an interesting conversation that you could have with him. Definitely.
Excellent. Then I'll pursue that. So quick questions, and then we'll get to the end here. Is Brett asked a question about, do you have a favorite U.S. state? And then before you answer that, Lynn asked if you miss Africa.
I'll always be in my heart Africa. I'm proudly South African. So yes, I'll always be Africa. So to answer that question, I can't elaborate on that. I mean, I was born there, and it will always be my home. Favorite state in America? I've been to about 37 states. I would probably say God's country, Colorado.
I knew that was coming.
No, Colorado's, I mean, it's just unbelievable. I love Colorado. It's an amazing state.
Well, interesting enough, one of my favorite places in the States is right next door, just above it in Wyoming. Same sort of situation. Yeah. And I'll actually be out there at 12,600 feet, 8,000 meters here in about a week.
Yeah. Yeah. I must say Montana comes close. I mean, Montana is beautiful. And then probably Alabama for some. Just enjoy Alabama as well.
Alabama.
Yeah.
Where'd that come from?
I love Alabama. I just love the people there, man. They're funny. They entertain me. They're characters. I just love the difference. They just different. I just love them.
Okay. Well, we'll save that for another conversation, and maybe we'll go in a future conversation get you back.
Yeah, absolutely. Just let me know. Maybe couple of months down the line, we can have a conversation again.
Absolutely. But I'd like to talk about your experience with the Glendale Raptors, and people learn a little about Glendale and Rugby Town, USA, all that going on out there. So that'd be cool. So let me give you this chance, Andre. So anything you want to talk about, a topic we haven't raised, or just, wrap up with?
I just want to say to the people out there, thanks for supporting me, the followers. I've got obviously a Facebook page. I've got a Twitter page. I've got a LinkedIn page. Connect with me. Let's have a chat. It's as long as it's all about rugby, I'm happy to talk about that. Just everybody out there, just stay safe. Love each other. Love your family, and keep up the good work.
Excellent. Well, thanks a lot, Andre Snyman. Bye, donkey. It was really a pleasure. Excellent. It was a pleasure having you on. Yeah, pleasure. My pleasure to have you on as a guest today. I'm going to put you in the waiting room if you can hang around just for a minute, if you can indulge me, because I want to just wrap up after I go off air. But I'm going to take you off.
Good.
All right, folks. That's Andre Snyman. He's been my guest today, talking about rugby, some interesting stuff. Andre, we'll catch you a little bit later on. Well, where's it at? Sorry, participants. There we go. All right, cool beans. I'll put him in the waiting room. All right, so folks, I got to adjust the screen really quick because we get that goofy thing here. There we go. All right, I'm back. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you, Brett, for the super chats. Thank you all for the questions. They were awesome. This was a fantastic interview, my first with a Springbok, and it was a really good one. Andre is a smart guy. He's got his act together, and he's also kind of the bridge between the amateur era of rugby and the professional era, as he bridged both of those, and quite an interesting transition. He's played with some of the giants of the game and against the giants of the game. You heard Jonah Lomu. He's played with John Smith. He's played with, he's a roommate of Joost van der Westhuizen for a long time and a teammate. Quite an interesting guy and knows a lot about it. 38 caps as a Springbok. Also played for the Sharks. No, I'm just kidding. And played for the Bulls as well. Anyway, folks, my many thanks to Andre. It was a fantastic interview. Because of his scheduling, we had to wait. You guys don't know this, but we've been waiting about 6 weeks to get this to happen, and I'm glad. It was well worth the wait. What I'll do is I'll break the interview up later on, edit it, some of the sections where he talks about like girls rugby and the game that girls play and things like that, and do some video shorts so people can watch those as well. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. I'll be back later today for the Night Owls edition of Senior Moment. Stray Voltage Night Owls edition. We'll just do a wrap up, talk a little bit about yesterday's events, and also maybe cover a little about what happened to Nick Bester and also some other events happening in South Africa today. Thank you all so much for tuning in today. I really do appreciate it. And thanks to my guest, Andre Snyman, for his appearance on Chris Wide Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, have a good day. Never trust a commie. Never trust a comrade. And be a Springboks fan. There you go.